Howdy everyone, this is BDC again, and today I'm doing a preview of a couple of my Defensive Towers and BAs Collections Workshop submissions. These are the Flak Tower bases, Mark 1 on the left and Mark 2 on the right. And I designed these guys specifically for anti-air. So obviously they're planet side. I don't know how well they'd work in space. I never tried to spawn one out in space, but these guys are meant to be something that are on a planet side or moon side, that kind of thing like that, placed either within the cluster of a bunch of different bases or around the outer perimeter, that kind of thing. These things are purely defensive. And these guys specifically are anti-air with their flak setup, the flak turrets placed up high. I got the idea for these on a multiplayer server once, a survival setup that I was playing on once, and I had a bunch of drone attacks that were hitting me early on, and some of the other defensive towers that I had crafted weren't as effective at dealing with the drone bombers that I kept running into, and they were happening pretty frequently. So I went ahead and designed these guys. The Mark 1 being the first one was just two simple flak turrets, which are actually, excuse me, four. I haven't looked at these in a while. It's been a while since I built these things, many months. Anyway, one of the design things that I did on these guys was I have these two flak turrets right here on the sides, and they're intended to mate with these guys, I guess. Maybe mate's the wrong word, but they're intended to work in tandem with those guys. There we go. Work in tandem with those guys to cover a bigger hemisphere, a more accurate hemisphere of targets. So having just the two flak turrets up top, they have a maximum barrel angle and barrel depression and things like that. They can only go so high. They can only cover so high of an arc. Whereas these guys, they spin on a perpendicular plane relative to the top ones, and so these guys can cover with the other ones much more coverage in a full hemisphere. So anywho, I stayed with the same theme on this guy right here. The only difference that I did on the Mark 2 tower versus the Mark 1, as you can tell, are these rocket turrets. Those are an elective. Those are something that you can choose to power on if you so wish. You don't have to. You can leave those off if you don't want to bear the expense of making a ton of rockets and potentially having them wasted. Just kind of depends. So the Mark 1 turret is for a lighter duty type of setup. The Mark 2, obviously, if you really want to defend a really expensive base, you got a bunch of ships, that kind of thing like that. One feature that these things have is, and this is something that I do on all the towers and platforms in this collection, is I use sentry turrets that are kind of scattered about the outer rims of them, and they're meant to kill predators or maybe people on foot if the cannon turrets are, depending upon, not the cannon turrets on these guys, if the flak turrets themselves don't get them, the sentry turrets can be set up to do that. They can be shut on and off, that sort of thing like that. Another design of these things is I tend to over-engineer these things. So on the defensive side, I've got everything made of armored concrete. I make no exceptions with that. I want these things to be pit bulls. I want them to be able to take a lot of punishment before they wind up getting damaged to the point to where they're inoperable. I want them to be able to dish out a lot of hate. So overbuilding them in armored concrete and doing extra ribbing around places around the critical core blocks and things like that, that's a big deal to me. The second thing I do is I tend to over-engineer on solar as well. One of the goals that I have with all of these towers and the defensive platforms I make is that I want them to be as low maintenance as possible. I want it to where you can rely on these things, where you can set them up in fuel, max the fuel out. Think of the fuel tank as like a reserve tank. But instead run these guys purely on solar, where they have so much solar input that dwarfs the amount of consumption rate they have with having all the turrets and everything on, where they can store enough battery to run at night, and then once the sun comes back up, the panels start kicking on and dishing out juice again, kind of a thing. So basically the player doesn't have to go over here every night and check on fuel, and it becomes a real annoying thing. Just want it to where these things can be set up, you ammo them up, and then you power them up, fill the fuel up, let the solar bake in there a little while and get some juice in the battery, and then leave them alone. So that's what I've been able to do with these guys in gameplay. Again, I did use these in an actual public server on multiplayer, and these guys were able to deal with drones and anything just fine. I didn't have to worry about anything. Once I heard of the drone warning, and you see the big drone bombers coming, these flak turrets just trashed them in a matter of seconds. So I don't know if there's anything else here really to mention about these guys, other than I did update these guys for Alpha 9. They were initially built in Alpha 8, but they're updated in Alpha 9. They've got the wireless connector blocks in there. So through the logistics menu, you can transfer ammo for these guys much more easily. And let's check out some of the ammo storage spots I've got on these. Let's see, on the Mark II, it looks like I've got one for 8,000. That's likely intended for the rockets, and then large one for the Flak BA shells, so 16K on that. And on the Mark I, I've got, let's see how we built this. I've got 8,000 and 8,000. It looks like I've got a couple of things that must have gotten in there. Let me get that out. So they can hold plenty of ammo, and all the core critical blocks are encased in armor concrete. Same with the core. I'm pretty strict about that kind of stuff. I want it to where if somebody's going to take one of these things down, they're going to really have to work at it. It may be possible, but they're gonna walk away bloody and bruised afterwards. So, anywho, I don't think there's anything else on these guys really to mention. I'll be linking these, both of these Steam Workshop links in the description below. If you like this video, hit the like button if you would, and please subscribe. I will be adding new content for Empyrion and all the other game stuff that our group plays most days of the week. So, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you watching the video, and have a good one.